Christmas program. That's going to be December 12th at the museum, in the Anna Miller Museum. And then Upton, they're going to have a lighting out at Old Town, and that's going to be the Friday before, and I think that's December 4th, if I recall correctly. And that's at 6 p.m. Dr. Jordan, would you like to come up here and share what the Historical Society events are?
Well, thank you very much, Cindy. I'm always jealous when I come to these meetings because Glenn always gets a large population of folks to come to hear his talk. So congratulations, Glenn.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you two events that the Weston County Historical Society has coming up. The first is on November 23rd, and if you're a member of our society, you will receive a notice in the mail if you've not already done so. But November 23rd is our annual meeting, and our annual meeting consists of recognizing the award nominees that we have identified over the last year. And then we have a program by John Woodward, who is out of Casper, and he's going to speak on the history of the Wyoming National Guard, the 150 past years of the Wyoming National Guard. That'll be on November 23rd. I would welcome you all to come. If you're not a member of the society and you would like to come and listen to the program and have lunch with us, you're welcome to do it. You could join if you would like to also. Lucille?
I was just hoping you would record that about the National Guard for sure. Because we had a recording of a program like that and it got lost. So please guard it with your life.
My life, or whose life are you talking about? Okay, all right. Well, very good. So that's November 23rd. John Woodward from Casper. He's a culturist or archivist at the two museums, the two National Guard museums in Wyoming. It'll be a great program.
Wonderful. Yeah.
The second program that I want to make you aware of is on December 10th. And December 10th is a Wyoming Day, and we recognize women's equality. Bruce Thompson, who has ties to Weston County, is going to come up. He's from Cheyenne, and his mother was Thyra Thompson. And so he's going to present Thyra Thompson's story. She was an icon in Wyoming for women's equal rights. So that should be a good program. That'll be on December 10th. You're welcome to come have lunch at the Senior Center at noon, and then Bruce's program will begin at 1 p.m. here in this room.
She was Secretary of State, Wyoming Secretary of State for many years.
That's right. Don't tell the story too much because people won't want to come. The first program on November 23rd begins at 12:30 in this room. I'm sorry, at the Upton Senior Center at 12:30, and lunch will be served there, and then the program will follow that. So, thank you very much. We have extra chairs up front here. Casey, if you don't have a seat, yep. And Glenn says if you're sitting in the front row, you won't get questions asked of you, but everybody beyond the first row gets the questions. Isn't that right, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
If you could hold your questions and comments until I'm done, that would be appreciated. The first part of my talk today will be about the teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s. And the second part of my talk will be about the frontier Madam Dell Burke and her yellow hotel. Next picture. This is the train locomotive. And if you were in Newcastle 100 years ago, you may have seen this train passing by. And if you didn't see it, you could probably hear it. Here? Trains were the main transportation across Wyoming, freight trains and passenger trains. As the railroad built west, small towns were built about every 30 miles. But some of them are just ghost towns today, like Ardmore, South Dakota. Ardmore was built in the late 1800s and is halfway between Crawford, Nebraska and Edgemont, South Dakota. A mile into South Dakota along the railroad. Now 50 years ago, my wife and I had a ranch of friends that lived close to Ardmore. And one hot summer day, we rode horseback into the Harry Hartman's General Store in Ardmore. Harry came out and said, "What can I do for you?" My friend said, "We could use a cold beer." Now Harry didn't ask what kind of beer because he only sold one kind and it was Schlitz. My wife asked Harry, "Where is your trash can?" Harry said, "Throw your cans in the street. It's been 50 years since somebody came in here horseback, and I will pick them up later."
Wow.
The next picture is Dewey, South Dakota. And Dewey is located halfway between Edgemont and Newcastle along the railroad track. Dewey was a large shipping point for the railroad for livestock. Ranchers trailed cattle 40 miles or more to Dewey to be shipped to market by rail. There were no sale barns or trucks in the early days. Most of the livestock were shipped to Omaha, Nebraska. Now we have a picture of Cambria. Cambria was a coal mining town just north of Newcastle, and the only thing left of Cambria today is the cemetery. Most of the rest of it is all gone. Then we had Tubtown. Tubtown was an early settlement about 4 miles east of Newcastle. It was there before Newcastle or Cambria. It was a rough, tough, wild town. Now it took a lot of men to build these towns. Most towns had a bank, blacksmith shop, a doctor, a delivery barn, a school, and a general store and a hotel. Now they didn't have a golf course, but they had saloons, gambling, and brothels. It's where men could go for entertainment and spend their money. Now brothels were where there were a lot of working men, like in mining towns, logging camps, oil booms. Tubtown had more brothels than any other business. And Calamity Jane worked in the brothels in Tubtown at one time. There she is.
What a looker.
What a hottie.
Now, Cambria didn't have saloons or brothels. It was a company-owned town. But Newcastle had 14 saloons and a few brothels. And here's a picture of one that was built in 1903. And it was located behind the Antlers Hotel down along the Cambria Creek. And it later became a hospital. If you were born in the 1940s in Newcastle, you may have been born here. I was born there in 1943. Early transportation, Model T Ford. It was built from 1908 till 1927.
That's right.
In 1925, it cost $260 for a Model T Ford. Then we had the Model A Ford. The Model A Ford was built from 1928 to 1931. And you might be able to hear the horn honking. There we go. The average cost of a 1930 was $440. If you were in Newcastle 30 years ago, you may have seen Ben Shook driving his 1929 Model A pickup around town. Ben was probably the last guy to drive a Model A on Main Street in Newcastle. Then we had the Ford Tri-Motor Airplane. They were built in 1925 and ended in 1933, and 200 were built. They were called the Tin Goose. There are approximately 4 of them still flying today. Richard Burke flew the Tri-Motor over the South Pole in 1929. And some folks, next picture, some folks used a horse and wagon and buggy. The picture on the right is the Mendenhall family crossing the Cheyenne River. The horse and buggy on the left is unidentified. Next, we have a picture of a moonshine still. In 1920, the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution was prohibition. It banned the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquor. This is when moonshine stills started all over the country and bootlegging became. And I have a song.
Down the road here from me, there's an old hollow tree where you lay down $1 or two. Go on around the bend, come back, it's again, there's a jug full of that good old Mountain Dew. Oh, if I laid that good old Mountain Dew, friends and that refusing of you, I'll hush up my mug, fill up my jug with that good old Mountain Dew.
I have a jar of moonshine here on the table if anybody is thirsty. I knew an old man on the Cheyenne River that made moonshine. He was Joe Rumney. Joe told me that he worked for Jess Boner on his ranch by lust, and all he did was made moonshine to pay off a $10,000 mortgage on the ranch. It sold for $5 a gallon. I will talk more about Jess during the Yellow Hotel story. Joe told me about the time that he and a friend were delivering 2 kegs of moonshine from Edgemont up the back road into Wyoming one night, and they missed the curve and they laid the old Ford on the side, and the 2 kegs rolled out. They rolled the 2 kegs to a low spot behind some sagebrush where no one could see them. They got the Model A back on its wheels, but it wouldn't start. One said to the other, well, maybe we're out of gas. It was dark and no one had a flashlight, so one of them took off the gas cap and lit a match. Well, they had a little enough gas. But they got it out, and they got some gas, and they made the delivery the next night. There was a moonshiner out by the Rochelle Hills, some 40 miles west of Newcastle, that went down by Crawford, Nebraska to pick up a still. On his way home, he stopped in Edgemont and went to the saloon to have a few drinks and play some poker.
You're in it for the fun?
Yeah, I love folklore and storytelling, and for me, Halloween is we celebrate it. We do the costumes, and I love to watch horror movies and eat garbage, and I don't, my kids' candy. But I've heard it said that sometimes horror movies, ghosts, monsters are really just metaphors for the other things we're really afraid of but can't address directly. Maybe it's healthy to get this out of our system. As a kid, if I heard a bump in the night, I'd be terrified. As an adult, if I hear a bump in the night, I'm terrified. It's the furnace and I have to pay for it. It's just maybe it was fun sometimes to be afraid of things that in most cases couldn't really hurt you, instead of worrying about debt or child abduction or, cancer or something that really is a threat. It's fun to be afraid of things that can't really hurt you.
When he left to come home, his Model A front wheel was chained to a light bulb and padlock. The law had come by and looked under the tarp and saw the still. They were out to get him. Now this old boy jacked up his Ford, put on his spare tire, and he got the hell out of Edgemont. I'm sure that some of his moonshine was drank at the Rochelle or Clinton dance halls. Did anyone go to these dance halls?
Yes.
My wife's mother told me about when she was a small girl, the law came to their place south of Edgemont and took her dad's still and arrested him. Down by Edgemont, there were 2 brothers making moonshine. One, the county was getting a new sheriff. The man running for sheriff told the 2 brothers, if I get to be sheriff, and if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to get your still. And they told him, it will be the last thing you do. In 1924, the banks failed, and only a few survived. A lot of people lost all their money in the banks. In 1929, the stock market crashed. The Great Depression devastated the Wyoming agriculture business. The low agriculture price hit the banks hard. In 1930, a widespread drought with a plague of grasshoppers and Mormon crickets hit the area. In some places, the grasshoppers were so bad they ate all fence posts. I knew a rancher at Ardmore, South Dakota, that got a flock of turkeys. They ate the grasshoppers, and he sold the turkeys later. During the Depression, there was no work. Hobos were right on top of trains looking for work. In Edgemont, hobos stopped and came to houses looking for work and asking for food. They would do anything, such as cut wood or whatever, for a loaf of bread or something to eat. I worked with an old Swede in Edgemont, and he told me that he rode a freight train to Washington one fall to pick fruit. And he thought he was going to freeze to death on top of a boxcar going over mountain passes in Idaho and Washington one night. In the 1920s and 30s, a lot of families loaded up all their goods in boxcars to leave west of Homestead. When they arrived at the town near their homestead, their house goods were hauled to their 160-acre homestead by a horse and wagon or an old truck. And here's a picture of some homesteaders west of where I grew up in 1932. It is Red Butler and his two boys, Oliver and Murray. Now, Murray's son, Dean, and wife, Linda, are here today, and thanks for coming and thanks for the picture. I'd like to tell this story about Murray. After the death of his dad, his mother married Walt Swope. Murray left home at 13 years old and went to work for rancher Bob Dixon. Bob taught Murray to be a cowboy. Later on, Murray told Bob that he was leaving Bob and he was going to go to work for Bill and Jim Zerbst. And that was my dad and uncle. Bob asked Murray, "How much will you make a month?" Murray said, "Well, I will get $30 a month, room and board, and all the bull durham I can smoke." Murray was my friend, and he was in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. In 1933, prohibition ended. It was the 21st Amendment. Also in 1933, the Civilian Conservation Corps started. It was called CCC. The CCC hired young men. They were paid $30 a month. 25 was sent home, and they kept 5. They got their clothing, meals, lodging, and medical. The CCC built the Guernsey State Park Museum, and when you stand in the door of the museum, you look right out at Laramie Peak. I don't know how many of you have been there, but it's a nice museum. They also built the Elk Mountain Lookout Tower, which is 10 miles east of Newcastle on Elk Mountain. They also built the Cement Ridge Lookout Tower in Burke County. They built the Dell Tower Visitor Center at the Dell Tower. The CC did a lot of work in the Black Hills, like campgrounds, trails, Stockade Lake Dam, planted trees, and much more. It lasted from 1933 to 1942, 9 years. Here is a picture of my wife's granddad's discharge paper from the Custer CC camp. I have the original copy laying on the table up here if anyone would like to look at it. Now there's a museum, a CC museum near Custer. I haven't been there, but I hear it's very nice. Works Progressive Administration, or WPA. This started in 1935 and it ended in 1943. It put men to work. Wages was $15 to $90 a month, depending on experience, at an average of about $50. They built roads, bridges, schools, fire lookouts, and they even built the Anna Miller Museum in Newcastle. If you haven't been to the Anna Museum, it's free and it's worth going to. They also built fish hatcheries, the Guernsey State National Guard camp at Guernsey, Wyoming. And here's a picture. The WPA built 2.3 million outhouses. And they were built for sanitation purposes throughout the United States. There was the Agriculture Adjustment Act, 1933 to 1936, and it was called AAA. The government bought and slaughtered livestock to control market supply. They paid $14 to $18 for cows and $8 for calves. The Depression was over when World War II started in 1939 and 1941. Excuse me. 1938, National Airmail Week. In 1938, airmail came to rural post office. It came to the Hack Creek Post Office and the Doggy Creek Post Office in Niobrara County. And here is a picture of the plane at the Doggy Post Office with all the people at it. Ruth Swope Reed is the only one living. Ruth lives at Lander, Wyoming. Her mother was Rita Swope, and she ran the post office. Rita was Dean Butler's grandmother. The post office was established in 1929 and ended in 1939. On December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and killed over 2,400 soldiers. And here's a picture of the bombing. It must have been hell. I knew two that survived this. One was Brownie Smallwood from Newcastle, and the other John Rice from Edgemore. In August 6th of 1945, the U.S. dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, and on August 9th, dropped another atomic bomb on Nagasaki, and approximately 200,000 Japanese died. The Japanese surrendered on August 15th of 45. In 1941, the U.S. was at war in Europe. The war ended in 1945, and approximately 400,000 American soldiers died during the war. And here's a picture of a cemetery, one of the cemeteries in Europe with American soldiers. Now, we have the blizzard of 1949. And there is a little bit of snow. The blizzard paralyzed Nebraska, North and South Dakota, and Wyoming. 70 lives were lost during the blizzard. Thousands of livestock and wildlife died. It started January 1st and ended until the middle of February. Some places received over 100 inches of snow, and drifts was 20 to 30 feet high, with temperatures in the minus 30. In 1949, there were very few four-wheel drives. Not everyone had a telephone. There was no heavy equipment like we have today. Food was flown to stranded ranchers by airplane. Planes flew hay to livestock. And here's some more pictures. There's the train east of Rapid City. This picture here is a train from Newcastle to Moorcroft, buried and stuck in the snowdrift. All roads were closed. All trains came to a standstill. The wind blew so hard that it would blow through a keyhole and leave a 3-foot drift on the floor. Cattle and horses were found frozen standing up. Here's a story about one of the oldest ranchers in Weston County, Carl Kimberly family. Carl Kimberly is a 1927 model and still lives on his ranch. Here's a picture of Carl's uncles and aunts. The Kimberleys are early pioneers in Weston County. The family left eastern South Dakota in the early 1900s. Now, they couldn't find a U-Haul truck, so they loaded up their supplies in a side-by-side. No, it was not a Polaris. It was horses side-by-side pulling a wagon with all their goods in it. And several of the family rode out on the train. My wife and I got to go to Carl's 98th birthday party this summer. And we were surprised that Carl was not the oldest one there. His two sisters were there, Gladys Pritchard and Clara Finn. Clara, 101 years old. I had a nice talk, this is Carl, and I had a nice talk with Carl a while back, and Carl talked about growing up in the 30s and 40s. And here's a picture of Carl's sisters and his parents years ago. He said that they'd ate some jackrabbits and sage hens. They didn't get a tractor until 1948. Horses were used before 1948, and he had had a few runaways. In the 1940s, for extra income, Carl sheared sheep. He said he had sheared sheep for my family and others on the Cheyenne River. And he said he got 17 cents to shear a sheep, and he could shear 90 head a day. Now that calculates to $15.30 a day. Now, I gave a kid $45 to mow my lawn this summer, and he got $15. I wish I'd have got Carl to mow it, it would have been much cheaper. Now, the next picture is a couple of cowgirls. There's Nancy Zerbst on the left and Clara Finn on the right in the late 1930s. Nancy was my special aunt. She worked for Kimberly's when she was 14 years old. Nancy and Clara became friends and they were the same age. Nancy talked to me about working there. She said that Mrs. Kimberly, Clara, taught her how to cook, make bread and pies, and it was done on a wood cook stove. You didn't turn the oven to 350 in a timer. So she did a great job teaching Nancy, as Nancy made the best pies and rolls. Nancy spoke quite well of Mrs. Kimberly. Now we have to buy a frozen pie and put it in the oven. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then there's cookies and stuff in the back room, but there's no moonshine. And we'll start up again in about 10 minutes. Have you enjoyed it? Thank you.
The new store. This is the one-stop shop. We have a pharmacy. We have a bootlegger's liquor. The deli, the food that you can get at a lunchtime is so amazing. The coffee shop. Certain Friday mornings, there's 30 people sitting here in all these chairs. This is the hub for people to come and visit, have their coffee, have their donut. It's amazing what this area has done. Totally amazing.
Burke in her yellow hotel. I asked people if they were going to come to my talk today, and they said, what is it about? Well, I told them, and they said, you're going to talk about Dell Burke? Well, I am. And some of them told me they kind of rolled their eyes and shook their heads and said, that sounds interesting, maybe we'll try to come. Well, Dell had a lot of friends, but most of them ignored her because of her profession. Although it was illegal, it did happen, and it was history, and everybody likes history. Mary Ada Fisher was born July 5th, 1888 in Somerset, Ohio, to Charles and Mary Fisher. She had 3 older brothers. And there's her picture. The Fishers had Lutheran religion and went to church every Sunday. In 1898, the Fishers loaded everything in a boxcar and moved to Dakota Territory, now North Dakota, to Homestead. They lived in a sod house. Mary's father opened the Fisher General Store and post office. The mother taught the kids school in the back of a store. Mary's folks wanted Mary to get a better education, so they sent her to a Catholic school in Fargo, North Dakota. After 3 years, Mary returned home and worked at the railroad depot. Mary matured fast and was a good-looking lady and a nice figure, and all the boys liked her. She changed her name to Marie. At 16, Marie fell in love with a railroader named Steve Law. Stephen was from Canada. And here's Steve and Marie's wedding picture. They got married and moved to a town close to the Canadian border. They lived with Steve's sister. Steve was 7 years older than Marie. Their marriage went sour and she decided to leave him. Since Marie could travel for free because her husband worked for the railroad, Marie went to the train depot, put her pass on the counter, and told the ticket man she wanted a ticket to Calgary, Canada. He asked, "Are you going to see family?" Marie said yes, but she was starting a new life and leaving Steve. Marie got a job waiting tables in a big hotel in Banff. She met a friend named Lucy, and they worked together. After a while working, Marie told her boss, "If I'm going to get pinched, I would like to get paid for it." The boss said, "You need to go to the top floor and become a soil dove." So Marie and Lucy went to the top floor and became a soil dove. After a while working, they heard that Alaska had a lot of rich gold miners, and Alaska had a big gold rush going on. Let's go. So the two young girls traveled to Juneau, Alaska. The streets was full of brothels and rich miners. Marie and Lucy went to work right away. The town was booming. Business was good. Now, a rich miner gave Marie a big ring and asked her to marry him. She said, hell no, and threw the ring in the river. Marie made $10,000 in 1 year in the brothels in Juneau. Alaska was good to her, and so were the miners. Marie changed her name to Dell Burke, and a new friend named Bessie Housey, who had the same profession, got on a boat and went to Seattle to work in the brothels around the shipyards. There were a lot of men who were going to Alaska to work in the gold fields and have a good time. The next picture, Dell and Bessie heard about Butte, Montana, which was a large copper mining town with lots of miners. So they went to Butte to work in the red light district. And this is the newest brothel in Butte, Montana, and I believe it's a museum today. In 1916, the price of copper rose to 20 cents a pound. The miners got a 25-cent pay raise, and the red light district in Butte exploded. Dell and Bessie made $100,000 there. Business was good for them in Butte. The next picture is the red light district in Casper, Wyoming. In 1917, Dell, age 29, and Bessie moved from Butte to the Sandbar district in Casper, Wyoming. The Salt Creek oil field was booming, and the oil refinery in Casper was booming also. There were lots of lonely workers there. They came to the Sandbar to drink, gamble, and go to the red light district. Casper was a boom town. Dell and Bessie made a lot of money in Casper. The next picture is Blanche Creek, Wyoming. In 1918, the oil boom came to Blanche Creek, Wyoming, 30 miles north of Lusk. The next picture is Lusk in the 1920s. The population of Lusk grew to 10,000. Dell could see that it would be a good place to start up her business. So Dell bought a tent. So Dell and Bessie moved to Lusk in 1919 and got a tent and went into business across from the railroad depot. There was uranium mining in Lusk. The men made good money, and Dell had a place where they could spend it. Dell soon rented a 6-bedroom house across from the railroad depot on 1st Street, and some people call it Gurley Street. At dark, Dell would turn on the outside light and ring a bell when she was open. Again, business was good for Dell, and in 1927, Dell bought a 10-room hotel in Manville, Wyoming, and had it moved to Lusk across from the railroad depot on 1st Street. She painted it bright yellow. It became Dell's Yellow Hotel. Dell had a Chinese cook, served steak dinners, had good moonshine, had bands, gambling, and upstairs business. The moonshine was made by Joe Rumney and delivered by Jess Boner that we talked about earlier. Dell also bootlegged moonshine to the red light district in Casper and Deadwood. She knew all the back roads. Dell closed at midnight on Saturday. She was closed on Sunday so the customers could go to church. She helped several kids in Lusk through college. She donated to charity, Mother Featherlegs Monument south of Lusk. She donated to the Legends of the Rawhide reenactment. In the 1920s, the town's electrical and water system was in need of repair, and the city didn't have money to repair it. Dell stepped up and paid over $20,000 to get it up and running. Later on, some of the people in Lusk wanted to close her down. They said they didn't want an illegal business in town. Shut her down. Dell said, you shut me down, I will shut your lights and water off. Dell ran her Yellow Hotel for 60 years. It was the longest running brothel in Wyoming, and they didn't give green stamps or senior discounts. Here's some stories about Dell. A man came to the Silver Dollar Bar and was selling vacuum cleaners. the bartender said, go to the Yellow Hotel. So he left. Later, the salesman returned to the bar and bought everybody around the drinks and said, thank you. She bought 6 vacuum cleaners. Now, my brother-in-law went to Lusk High School in the 1960s. The FFA were selling candy for a fundraiser. They went to Dell's and he knocked on the door, and Dell came to the door. Well, what can I do for you? Well, I'm with the FFA and we are selling candy, and here's a sample. Oh, that's good. How much of it do you have? I have 1 case. She said, I'll take it. The ag teacher couldn't believe that he had sold Dell Burke a case of candy. The next picture, Ranger Hotel. Ladies would get off the train, go across the street to the Yellow Hotel to get a room. Dell would tell them, maybe you should go uptown to the Ranger Hotel, you'll get more sleep. And this is the Ranger Hotel in Lusk. Dell had a good business and was a good business person. She invested in stocks, bonds, and real estate. She had a small ranch east of Lusk. Dell advertised in outdoor life. Her customers were ranchers, oil field hands, truck drivers, soldiers, salesmen, and hunters. They all came to the Yellow Hotel. In World War II, there was an air training base in Casper, 100 miles away, and a National Guard camp in Guernsey, Wyoming, and they all came to the Yellow Hotel. Dell was known all over the United States. Young boys would go to the Yellow Hotel on a dare, and Dell would tell them, come back when you can grow whiskers and get older. Dell and her girls wore lots of perfume. The banker could always tell when Dell and her girls brought money to the bank, it smelled so wonderful. Dell let stranded travelers stay in the Yellow Hotel during the '49 blizzard. The Lusk Chamber was collecting annual dues. They went to the Yellow Hotel and told Dale they were collecting yearly dues. Dale said, how much is it? They said, well, it's $200. Dale reached down in her blouse and pulled out a big roll of $5 bills and counted out $200 and put the rest back away. Now, Dell's good life ended August 4th, 1979, when she fell and broke her hip. At the hip stabilized, she moved to the nursing home in Lusk. Dell said, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. I've made a lot of money, traveled the world. It's been a good life. She died November 4th, 1980, 93 years old, 45 years ago. Now, we're having this estate sale of Dell's estate in 1981, and here's the picture of the jukebox. Dell's 4 nieces got $500,000 each. Madden Brothers did the auction. The sale was advertised from New York to California, Montana to Texas, and overseas. The day of the sale, Lusk population jumped from 1,650 to over 3,000. They sold yellow T-shirts that read, I got a piece of the Old West at Dell's Yellow Hotel in Weston, Wyoming. Sheriff B. Breed bought a Charlie Russell painting. Joe Madden bought the Yellow Hotel for $41,500. Charles Christian purchased the 418-acre ranch for $173,000. The hotel ranch and belongings sold for a total of $275,000. It was a 2-day auction. There were 1,500 bidders. The mill studio sold for $5,500. The jukebox sold for $3,600. The parlor lamp sold for $495. The large tapestry sold for $1,175, and there was a brass ashtray that formed a new lady went for $410. And believe it, the hotel bell sold for $850. Now the Yellow Hotel caught a fire. The Lusk Fire Department had a controlled burn and burned it to the ground. There are books about Dell Burke. One is Dell Burke, Frontier Madam, The Life of Dell Burke, Lady of Lusk, and they can be got at the Weston County Library. Now, hold on.